Hey, I'm Trey. As a detective, I witnessed people take their very last breath after being murdered by someone for doing absolutely nothing to the killer. We believe that our lives are valuable to us, but there are loads of people that take pleasure in killing, and some of them are serial killers. If you're into real stories about serial killers from around the world spanning centuries, then this is the channel for you. So if you're ready, let's get started. 1933, in the country of Belgium, Nestor Piorte was born. Nestor and his brother Anthony Piorte had aspirations to grow up and become aristocrats. An aristocrat is basically the privileged, wealthy 1% class. For context, let me explain that this is just not the regular 1% class, but this is people who actually come from the bloodline of royalty or generational wealth. Sometimes it's referred to as old money. So this is the upper echelon. Unfortunately, the two boys came from a middle class upbringing. If they had learned to appreciate the lifestyle that they had, they would have realized that there are millions of people that would love to have been in their shoes. Nestor didn't appreciate the lifestyle that was provided for him. Later in this story, you'll see how his life unravels due to this. The two brothers were well liked and had many friends from various social classes. They mainly played with their wealthy counterparts as children. Secretly, they were envious of their friends' lifestyle. So much in fact that they learned everything they could possibly learn from wealthy children to keep up the facade that they were accustomed to this ultra-privy lifestyle. They would lie and tell others that they were the children of lords. It was alleged that academically, Nestor was an underachiever. Let me rephrase that. From what I've read, he was not bright by a long shot, but he was able to mask his deficiencies from people with his phony facade and with his charisma. Instead of using this envy of his to motivate him into becoming the person that he desired in a positive way, he chose to turn down a darker path. When they became young adults, they would attend high society functions that they were not eligible to attend. The two brothers became so well rehearsed with the mannerisms and lifestyles that they could fool most who would listen. They mastered and would continue to use these skills to their advantage as they became older. As an adult, Nestor joined the military, where he continued on with his tall tales of being an aristocrat's child. This was at the same time he began his life of crime as a thief. In the military, his life wasn't improving fast enough, and he was running out of options, so he chose to dabble in crime. I'm not going to get into all the details of every theft that he took part in, but ultimately he was arrested several times and was given a 3-month suspended sentence. April 1954, Nestor found out that his aunt had owned a farm. She was in need of money and decided to sell the cattle that she owned for some quick cash. Nestor went to her home with the intention of stealing his own aunt's money. When he arrived, instead of just formulating a plan on how to steal her money from her, like any other level-headed thief, he immediately started bashing her head in with an iron pole. She subsequently died from her injury. Nestor didn't take into account that he didn't know where the money was or even how much was available to steal. Unbeknownst to Nestor, prior to his arrival, the money had already been spent by his aunt. Big dummy. As you can all now see for yourself, Nestor was far from being a bright, forward-thinking individual. Nestor was eventually arrested for the murder. The information that I was able to find inferred that he confessed to the authorities why he did what he did. He was charged, had a trial, and found guilty. This is where he got the title of the Crazy Killer, labeled by the public and the media. Now that makes sense, because he is a nut. They gave him this name not because he was a lunatic, but when the media got a hold of the circumstances surrounding this homicide, he was seen as extremely stupid in their eyes. No, wait, there's more. The story gets even better after this. He was then sentenced to the death penalty, but it was commuted to life in prison. Nestor pretended to be crazy so that he would be remanded to a psychiatric hospital. I don't think he had to try too hard. Piorte also knew that he would have a better chance of being released when he was eventually cured of his fake insanity. He was successfully able to make this happen after serving 13 years in the psychiatric prison. He was released on parole. A few weeks after being released, Nestor robbed the bank by pretending to be an aristocrat. with a large financial proposition. This guy is a complete nut. I wouldn't be surprised if he went dressed like the Monopoly man. As soon as the manager allowed him into the vault, Nestor shot him in the head, killing him. A week later, Lester was apprehended by the authorities and sent back to prison. While incarcerated, Nestor would pretend to commit suicide so that he would be transferred to a minimum security area. Great idea. One of his bright ideas was an attempt to throw himself off of a high wall, which was unsuccessful. Piotr completed 10 years of his sentence and was released in 1970. He seemingly gave up his life of crime and found a job to integrate back into society. Psych, no, wait, there's more. 10 years later, the police received a call to respond to a restaurant due to some type of robbery that had taken place. The authorities responded, and the owner of the business, by the name of Madeleine Humbert, was found shot to death. As the officers went to check the rear of the restaurant, they found 2 additional employees murdered, whose name was not provided, and also the pet dog was murdered. The police checked the restaurant customer registry for any reservations that were made prior to the homicide. And guess whose name popped up? Nestor. He was the last customer for that evening. This guy should have just waited there for the police to come lock him up. Along with this homicide scene, the owner's son was also missing. No information was provided on the owner's son, but based on the information I read, it can be inferred that he was never found. The authorities never provided any information that Nestor was responsible, though. In January of 1981, Nestor violated the stipulations of his early release conditions and was rearrested. The night after his capture, he escaped from prison. After these murders, Nestor began to go on the run. He remained under the police radar for some time. While on the run, Nestor allegedly broke into a wealthy owner's mansion. No one was there at the time because the actual owner was away handling business. While the owner was away on business, Nestor took it upon himself to just move into the house and live in it. Nestor lived there undetected for some time. Wait a minute. How are you just gonna break into someone's house, then choose to live there like it's right? I guess he chose to fake it till he made it. While illegally residing there, he pretended to be the Count of Mias Argentile, who was the actual owner of said property. Nestor did this as an attempt to defraud someone by selling the property that he had no right to sell. One day, while he was in the house, an antique dealer who was actually employed by the Count came by to visit for business. Nestor was arrested and sent back to prison. This time he was sentenced to the death penalty. For whatever reason, Belgium's death penalty was stopped, so it was commuted to a life sentence. Nestor died from heart attack in July of 2000. If you enjoy more stories such as these, subscribe to the channel. Also hit the button so you can be notified of new content that I upload every Tuesday and Thursday. God bless and stay safe.